Where is Dad?
I think Dad has made some excellent progress today.
Your dad, he's a fun guy, right?
And I love him so much, and I think he's the greatest dad in the world.
Welcome back to the Working on the Dad Pod. I'm Alex. With me, as always, is Ethan. And this week, we're joined by a very special guest, David Ubben, who's a senior writer for The Athletic, host of the Bunch Formation podcast, and, of course, a fellow dad. David, how are you doing today?
I am doing good. I feel like my parenting meter is high. I had to travel for a couple days, so I was able to work and not have tiny humans demanding things from me at all moments. So like you get home and you're like, okay, like we're gonna be okay. Versus like days when I have to work and then my wife is busy doing something and then it's like 7 p.m. and I'm like, all right, we gotta wrap this up.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, I had a travel for work kind of situation, and it definitely refills the meter.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it was backed up by my wife then going on a 10-day cruise with her mom, and
that's tough.
That fuel tank got depleted a lot faster.
Yeah. My wife always has to be at work before the girls wake up, so I get every morning by myself. I now have to go into the office. It's no longer a work from home situation for me. And then for some reason, I'm expected to be 50% in it, 50-50 duty when I get home from work too. So, I don't really get a break. Ever.
You got to get a contract. You got to negotiate for a better contract at this point. Yeah.
It's true. I need a good NIL with like Huggies or something.
Yeah, that would help. Mm-hmm.
It would. So a couple things. Dave, I'm sure as a good journalist you went back and binged all 75 of our episodes so that you know.
Twice, actually. Yes.
Twice. Okay, good. That's impressive. Before we get into it, just this is actually, in a way, it's kind of a home and home because you don't remember this. I do, because it was one of the little highlights of my life. But I was actually one of the voicemails on your old podcast until Saturday, where it was a week after the Miami no knee against Georgia Tech. And, and about a week later, I think we were playing North Carolina, the middle of the third quarter. I was calling just sad. And you, Ari, and Nicole said it was a pretty good voicemail for after 10:45 at night, so I'm pretty pretty happy about that.
That's good. I was recalling you did some service journalism back in the day with the pizza vending machine, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And I still never seen one of these in the wild, but I did literally Google it. And I was like, "There's one like in Nashville. I'd like to see it in the flesh." So
it is quite the experience when you go in there and you're watching the screen of the robot pizza maker grabbing it out of the freezer and getting it cooked in 3 minutes. It's actually really great to bring the kids with you because you get to tell them that it is delivery pizza because they become the pizza man. So it's kind of nice. Yeah.
And people say AI is bad for society. Hey, come on now.
Right.
The wonders of technology.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So that kind of bleeds into our first question for you, Dave. As a sports writer, you actually have, in mine and Alex's opinion, the Mount Rushmore of jobs. Alex and I actually met at the University of Miami in comm school, both with the goal of working in sports. Our careers veered a bit. But, you obviously travel a lot for work. I know you've got the Boulder Beat as one of yours.
Yeah.
So, what is it like traveling so much for work and then still maintaining that communication with your kids and your partner from afar?
So it's not too bad. I think that part of it with college football is it's a pretty manageable travel schedule. Like some of these guys, like MLB beat writers, I don't know how they have like lives. I mean, I feel like the divorce rate has to be pretty high. I don't know how you like do that. There's so much travel involved. With college football, it's pretty manageable. Like I would say I'm probably on the road, I don't know, 30, 40 nights a year, something like that. Nothing super crazy, like probably more than average, but nothing insane. And so like if it's in like little 2-day and 3-day bursts, which it usually is. Like if I'm covering a game on the weekend or I'm doing a visit, it's more manageable. Maybe once a year I'll have a 5 or 6 day trip, and that's when my wife is like, we're getting some help like every day of this trip, basically. And so, so the way we work it out is, so my wife's a therapist. And so we have a like, I don't know if you want to call her nanny, babysitter, whatever you want to call her, like comes and takes care of the kids those 2 days. And then my wife does the other 3 days. So I'll do the morning stuff, like the morning that the nanny is there. So my wife will want to get some sleep and then go to work. And so that's worked pretty well for us in terms of like our kids not getting that sick. There's not a lot of like half week daycares. They usually want to like do like charge you full price, and I can be around the girls, like see them like for lunch and hang out. And if there's a problem, I can be there. So that's worked pretty well. But when I travel, my wife is not good about like returning texts or calls. I don't know. She like forgets I exist. Like when the girls go to bed, she might call, and then in the morning she might, but I'll call or text or something, and I won't get a return back for like 5 hours. And initially that was a concern, but now I just know that's just like what it is. I feel like it's almost like the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing with the war paint or whatever. Yeah. When I'm gone, it's like, listen, we're just gonna prepare. We're gonna go hard, and we're gonna survive this. And then when we get out, then we'll call the folks back home, basically. So it's kind of odd because I don't really do that. If my wife is gone and she's not gone hardly, she's gone hardly ever. I keep telling her like you should do like a trip with friends to Nashville or go to Chicago or something, and she's like, I don't really want to do that. She doesn't really like traveling very much. So anyway, long story short, like we don't do a ton of like calling or FaceTiming. Like at the end of the night, usually I will, or like in the morning sometimes. But more often than not, if I call or text, I'm just not getting an answer for like a long time. So I feel like that's probably an anomaly, but you got to make it work for you, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that whenever my wife's on the other end of that, where she loves taking trips with her friends, for a long weekend or something. And if she ever chooses to FaceTime, of course, it's going to be the choppiest signal in the world. And then everybody's just going to be upset. And my kids are going to be wired and upset no matter how long the conversation lasts. But about 5 minutes in, my daughter, who's 6, gets hyper fixated on wanting to use like the emojis that will turn your face into like the poop emoji or something, or a unicorn, right? And that's all she wants to do. And I'm like, your mom wants to hear about your life. Yeah. She doesn't really want to talk to a pile of poop right now. So like, let's,
the issue we run into sometimes, like, so we'll FaceTime like with my dad quite a bit. But then when we do that, then my oldest, she's 3, she wants to take the phone and then just go run off and have a conversation. But I don't know if you remember, I tweeted about this. I built this kitchen at Christmas like 2 or 3 years ago. I had like a 10 tweet thread. It was terrible. My wife bought it with no regard for the difficulty of putting it together. I started this thing at probably 8:30 on Christmas Eve, and I went to bed. Like, first of all, I was like drenched in sweat. I went to bed at probably 2:00. I think I finished this thing at 1:45. It was horrific. Anyway, all that to say, she will like put the phone like in the oven or in the microwave in this kitchen. And then I'm like, hey, my dad doesn't want to just look at the top of the microwave while you like talk about what you're cooking. He wants to like see
right.
So like gaining control of the phone. So now like anytime we talk to them, there's an ultimatum that has to happen where I'm like, hey, if you take the phone and you go somewhere else or you set it down, like we're hanging up, we're doing that. We're not doing this. So usually I can maintain control because then she's like, well, I know I want to do that. So, but the FaceTiming in general, she doesn't understand the like, hey, people would like to see you if you're going to FaceTime. It's like, well, she's just going to lay down the camera and then just have it be.
My 5.5-year-old, she will demand we call either my dad, my mom, or my brother, and then she will talk for about a minute, and then she just runs off screen. But I'm using it as kind of childcare so I could get something done. That was actually really helpful during most of the pandemic, and just a good way that, my kids got to know their grandparents. Dave, I think you, Alex, and I are roughly the same age, but Alex and I actually invited our dads on the pod last week, and we were talking about how they have great relationships with our kids because of FaceTime. But I remember the chill going down my spine when when your parents would say, "I'm on long distance, stop talking." and for me, that's what it was to like just coordinate with a grandparent. Just wild.
Times definitely have changed. It's fascinating. The thing that my daughter also does that is that I have gotten my dad used to, because it'll be my dad and my sister and my brother-in-law, is whoever she's talking to on the phone, she just wants to talk to somebody else. She's like, "Hey, I want to talk to Aunt Steph. Oh, I want to talk to Uncle Pete." It's like extremely rude. I'm like, she's 3, so it's okay. But she was begging me to call you for like 30 minutes. Then I did it. She'll be on there for 30 seconds and be like, "I gotta talk to somebody else."
yeah. My kids are exactly the same way. Just a roster. They just like knowing they can get people, it's not so much about the substance.
Yeah. My daughter does something similar with her grandparents, because my wife's parents live here with me in Florida, near us, not in our house, but spend half the year up in Massachusetts, the summer months. And she will FaceTime with her grandparents when they're up in Massachusetts, and she'll just start yelling about halfway through the conversation to be like, come back now. Like, I want to see you, just go 1,000 miles or whatever it is and come back now. And then get really frustrated when the answer is just no.
Yeah, don't you love me? What's the deal?
Yeah, right.
So here's my question for you. So we are in the thick of it. We have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I have heard differing interpretations of it. At what point do you regain some humanity where you can live rather than be indentured servitude if you're not working?
So can they play together harmoniously for at least? Okay.
No.
So
not 30 seconds. No.
Okay. So I have found my wife and I found that kind of once they get to 5 minutes of playing together, the next 10, 15, then to an hour kind of happened. And you have 2 daughters like myself. You said 3 and 1. So did your older daughter, did you have terrible 2s, or as my wife and I like to say, 3-nager years?
Yeah, we're leaning into the 3-nager. Basically about,
I
would say 3-4 months ago, she went from like perfect angel into opinionated, stubborn, just very volatile. Because now she's in this thing where she's not physically ready to not take naps, but she refuses to take naps. So I'm not going to fight with you for 90 minutes and then get you down for a nap at like 3:00. And then, because then what happens is she might sleep for an hour. You need to wake her up 4:30. Well, then what happens? Then when it's bedtime, then it's another 90-minute fight. So basically my wife and I were like trying to juggle this. And it's like, well, she's not physically ready to not nap, but we have punted on the nap. And then basically we're going to try to go to bed early, but then like 6 p.m., she'll like turn into a gremlin, and if one thing goes wrong, like it's meltdown central.
Spirals.
So she was like perfect for a long time, and then now it's like she was good in the 2s, and now that we've turned the corner into 3, it's like basically the last pretty much since like I would say like March. It's been like the most difficult stage we have been in ever, because everything is a task.
So my daughter, same kind of timeline. She was fantastic in 2s. We caught the tail end of 3-nager. She was a wild 4-nado, and 5 has honestly been so rough on me just mentally. To the point where she's actually less. This
is supposed to be encouraging. Ethan.
Yeah, this is.
No, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I'll go back to it. I will say that with regard to fighting the nap when they still need it. So we do preschool, and when she got to about age 3, we basically learned that she no longer napped at school, but it became a problem because she would wake up her friends. And so they placed her. Yeah. So they placed her in accelerated, which is really just the kids who don't nap, we're going to charge you extra money and they're going to do some extra activities. And what we've been able to do was kind of parlay that into the at-home life where we no longer make her nap, but we have her do quiet time where she's still in her room. She's no longer in her crib, so she just gets in and out of her bed willy-nilly. But, we basically just say the lights have to be off, your sound machine has to be on. If you want to sleep on the floor, make it like a game, go for it. We've got the camera. And we have found that some of the time, at least when she was younger, and more so then, that quiet time became nap anyway because they would just get bored. So sometimes that's a good trick.
So what happens if you do that and then she just beats on her door endlessly until you let her out of her room?
So I will say our kid never did that.
I had to deal
that's what happens to us, where it's like, this is not happening.
Yeah. So this is what, like, we have an Alexa in my daughter's room, my son's room. My kids share bunk beds. Mm-hmm. My son's 3.5. And so we've done some of this quiet time on the weekends because he's kind of the inverse of Ethan's daughter. He will nap at school, but on the weekends, he's like, no, I'm good. I did that Monday through Friday. It's the weekend. Let's party. And so we'll give him some quiet time. And basically, if he beats on the door, I just go in and we call her Alexa Ziggy so that it doesn't get confused with my name because that was really bad for the first couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. And said, hey, Ziggy, add 10 minutes to my timer or something like that. And it's just like, okay, we can just extend quiet time if you don't want to be quiet. And it's a little bit of like, he learned pretty quickly, like, okay, this isn't going to go the way I thought it was going to go. I'm just getting added time to my sentence here. But I will say the quiet time doesn't always last forever and ever. Like it works, but we kind of gave it up.
Here's another question. The red light, green light machines that they have. I have heard these work. I am extremely skeptical. We're getting to the point where we might have to do that. Does that actually work? I use that for my kids to this day. So we have the Alexa and then we have one of those Alexa smart lights. Before that, we had just like something we had bought off of Amazon, but it was just like a dog holding a crystal ball thing that would turn red or green. And I have the light set to 6:30 is their wake up time. It turns green and they're not supposed to get out of their bed until it's green. And it's not foolproof, not perfect, but at the same time, it does let them know that if they're going to come out and they're going to disrupt, that we're going to usher them right back in and say, wait until your light's green. So I think it's probably like mitigation, not like perfection kind of technique. We're getting ready to go into the toddler bed stage, and so my wife's like, we're gonna die, you know that, right? Because she's not gonna stay. And I'm like, well, she's like, we got to try this, we'll see. So I don't know. I'm concerned about the toddler bed days because if she doesn't want to go to sleep, the problem that we run into is if she doesn't want to go to sleep, then we start headbanging against the back of the crib. And I'm like, well, you can't keep doing that. So now I have to go back in. If you're just jumping and screaming and rolling around, it's like, okay, well, eventually we're out of gas. But when we get into like CTE for toddlers, we can't.
Right. So we, we kind of ignored some of the safety rules probably earlier with regard to having toys or objects in the crib with them. Is your daughter like alone in the crib, or is she allowed to like bring a toy in? Can she draw?
She can have toys sometimes. Yeah, she'll have some of her toys. Because at this point, like, I don't think we're not super worried about safety. We didn't do that a lot early on, but she was always a pretty good sleeper and would go to bed relatively easily. Right. But she'll have some toys. She has a bunch of stuffed animals in there, and then we're still doing the sleep sack. We experimented with no sleep sack for a while, and then that didn't really work. So we're back in the sleep sack with some blankets additionally. So
So my 5.5-year-old, she refuses to let go of the sleep sack. I mean, it's obviously not a sack. We just have it unzipped. It's like an extra blanket, but it's clearly become just a permanent fixture in her life. So. Yeah, but it's fine. It's a snuggie.
I will say, as having slightly older kids than Ethan, about a year older for each of my kids, to your original question of when does it get a little bit easier on the playing thing? I want to say about a year ago, was when we started introducing what we call Sunday Fun Day, and it doesn't have to be on Sunday. But basically, we would set up like 3 different toy stations. So we might have Magnetiles in the living room, like kinetic sand or Play-Doh in the dining room, and then like a third toy, like train set, like a Brio train set or something in their room. And so 3 stations, 2 kids, and we say you each pick a station. If you want to migrate to where the other person is, fine. But if you fight, we're going to set a 3-minute timer, and you both have to separate from that station and go to the 2 other stations, right? And you can't be together for 3 minutes. So it makes them either play together or play separately. But that's usually what we've instituted on like Sunday afternoons, because then we're like folding laundry, packing lunches, like doing all that stuff to sort of get ready for the week. And that has really helped us manage a little bit, because it's like these things that they can do on their own. And if they want to collaborate, great. But if they don't, they kind of still get to play. They're not being punished, but it's just a very like, if anybody screams, you're separated.
This is an interesting idea. We're working on the sharing stuff. Like, the thing that doesn't make sense is my oldest like loves our youngest, who's, you know, she just turned 1. She's like, she doesn't know what's going on. Sure. She's like, oh, I'll do anything. I love her. And then if she comes near any of the toys she's actively playing with, it's like, grab it. No, get away. It's like, what?
That's
what
not weird. That's being an older sibling.
Yeah. I can relate as the oldest of 2, and my daughter does the same thing with her sister. It's funny because that happens, yet they're both each other's ride or die. They're obsessed with each other. They just want to be best friends forever, yet they will have the wildest fight over the smallest thing. And at some point, and the other thing that's crazy for me, you know, is that my 5.5, she's got like at least 9 inches on her little sister, but her little sister points her. And as an older sibling, I want to rip my remaining hair out to just say, you know, like, smack her around. You're bigger than her. But, you know, obviously I can't condone that kind of violence, but it's just, come on, don't let her mess with you. Don't let her make you cry.
It sounds like the little one's got that dog in her, man.
Oh, she does. She is very much a second child who was, despite our best efforts, a little bit treated like a second kid sometimes. And it's just like, I don't need approval. I can just run this shit.
I was the youngest of 6. I didn't have to deal with any of this. You know, this is not.
Oh man, youngest of 6. What's the age difference?
So 4 of us were adopted. So there's me and the youngest, and then we had twins that are 5 years older than me, a boy and a girl. And then my oldest sister is 16 years older than me, and then my brother is 12 years old, maybe 14 years older than me, and then my sister is like 12 years older. So it was basically like 2 sets of 3, basically.
Okay,
I get you.
Yeah.
So yeah. I feel like your older siblings were probably like we're probably like kind of running the show by the time you came along, where they're just like, this
more
is
or
how
less.
things are.
Like my oldest sister, you know, she would go out in public and plenty of people would think like that was her kid, basically, because she was like 16, 17 at this point, and she's kind of got an adult face, I guess.
Sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I hear that. I think the next topic, one of the things that we talk about a lot on our show that I know you guys talk about on Bunch Formation quite a bit, especially in the off season, is food, right? And so traveling, you know, when you do, obviously you mentioned it's like 30, 40 days per year, but you get to go to like a lot of different places and a lot of different cities. What are some of your like favorite, you know, like road trip snacks for, you know, if you were driving over to Knoxville, or, you know, you live pretty close by, but just like if you were driving, say, you know, for a game somewhere, or if you're flying out, what are some of your like go-to snacks that you have to have on the road?
I mean, so I'm fortunate now that I'm trying to do the math. I believe in 3 of the 4 directions from us in Knoxville. We got Crossville, Calhoun, Georgia, and Sevierville. We have a Buc-ee's in 3 of the 4 directions.
Ooh, nice.
So so Crossville's like an hour out. Sevierville's like 45 minutes, and then Calhoun's like an hour and a half. So you have those 3. Generally, we're going to be getting some Buc-ee's cashews. The candied cashews. That's like the must, basically. I will say, I'm realizing now because I'll buy 2 or 3 bags and eat one of them in the car and then just have them rest them in my work bag for that particular trip. $5 for the little bag of nuts. We're pushing it a little bit at this point, but they're delicious.
Inflation's getting us. Yeah,
that's like that's number one for sure. But I figured out in college that if I'm like eating a little bit of something, I don't fall asleep if I'm driving, or I don't get tired if I'm driving. So I'll do something. But like peanut M&Ms are probably up there. But right now, it's still the Buc-ee's nuts. The problem is it's a lot of sugar. So if I eat too much, then I'm giving myself a stomach ache or something. And if I'm driving somewhere and I'm about to have dinner, like when we get there, that can be a little problematic. But Buc-ee's nuts is currently the belt holder. I would say like peanut M&Ms is like the Udonis Haslam of the snacks. It's like it's been solid for like a long time. It's not gonna be like winning any Hall of Fame, stuff. It's not gonna be carrying any teams to titles, but it's gonna be a solid contributor. So those are probably the number 1 and number 2. And then also, I got on a sparkling water kick like 3 years ago. Okay, I would call myself at this point an authority on sparkling water and all of the things in between there, the brands, all of those deals. So like a solid like lime sparkling water on the road with or without the Buc-ee's nuts, it's just deeply refreshing, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I will regularly do the road trip at least once a summer to New York and back from DC. And for me, with liquid, there's like a magic spot. It's got to be like, if I have more than one drink, whether it be a full water bottle or a cup of coffee, there's too many stops in the trip. Like, have you mastered that balance?
So more or less, yeah. So I can kind of put it through. My wife, like if I have to travel with her, there's going to be a lot more peeing happening, which is like brutal. But we so we tried to do the trip back to Arkansas, where I am from, last summer and almost died. This was like the worst trip of our lives. So traditionally, when we had to drive back, we would drive. It's like 12 hours. We could do it in one day with 2 adults. It's not that hard. It takes, you're killing a day. It takes a lot out of you, but like you just leave early, you get there kind of like, 8, 9 o'clock, eat and go to sleep, and it is what it is. Well, obviously with kids, that complicates things and it stretches it out. So we attempted to make this trip shortly after our youngest was born last summer so that we could see the family and, introduce them and all that stuff. Oh my gosh. We split it up into 2 days and we just had not really done the math. So we went through St. Louis instead of Memphis, where we usually would. Just because there was more stuff in St. Louis and there was like the hotel options were better. Anyway, so it was like a 5-hour and a 7-hour basically. And I thought, well, then we don't have to wake up super early. We don't have to be rushing. But then what happens is when we don't get on the road till like 10 o'clock, we realize that instead of like a day and a half or 1 day of driving, it's like 2 full days of driving, because we did not realize we had a 2-year-old at the time. She needs to get out and get energy. And then we had to feed the littlest, and then we have to eat. These lunch stops were turning into like 2-hour things because you start adding it up. Okay, we've got to eat. So a good example, on the way there, it was pouring rain, and we did not realize this. And I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, but then we realized like there's nowhere to really go. So we went in a like podunk Walmart and I just let my daughter walk around, but then she wanted some of the toys and we got her out of there, but it was touch and go. So on the way back, it's the same thing. So we stop, we're eating like Raisin Canes or something, and then we've got to feed our infant. And then so we've eaten and we got to feed them, but then she's got to run around. So we went into the Bass Pro Shops, not the Pyramid, but the one in Springfield, Missouri, excuse me. I think that's the biggest one. It's pretty cool. It's a great place for her to walk around. It's air conditioned because this was July, so it's super hot. But she decided she didn't want to leave, so I'm dragging a screaming, kicking child out of here, which I've only done a few times. I'm always a little worried about people calling the cops when that happens. But anyway, I've done that a few times. But literally, we would stop, and it's noon, and then by the time we're actually back on the road, it's like 2:15. That stuff adds up in a hurry. Getting kids in and out of the car seat, it's time to run around, and it was like by the end, both times, like by the time we were trying to get there and leave, we had kids screaming and pooping in the back seat. And like it was a total meltdown from everybody. And like the last hour coming back, everybody was yelling and crying and screaming. And I was like, I don't think we could do this anymore. This is insane. It was like the worst trip of my life.
I gotta say, it doesn't get a lot better when like both of my kids are potty trained. And so when they're potty trained, but they still have tiny bladders, the number of times we have checked with them before leaving a bathroomed area and say, do you need to go to the bathroom? And they say no. And then we pull onto the interstate and they say, I've got to poop, is like exceptionally high.
Oh my God.
Like Hall of Fame batting percentage.
So so we just made it through potty training with our youngest. So this upcoming trip next month to New York will be our first with all three ladies and myself needing to make stops. But at least in your guys' situation, you know, your wives are comfortable sharing the driving. Fun fact about my wife, Dave. She did not learn how to drive until she was 6 months pregnant with our first daughter. I actually had to teach a pregnant woman how to drive a car.
Is she from New York?
They are from. She grew up in Princeton, where you have to drive. But
interesting.
Her mother did not learn how to drive until she was married. Same thing with her aunt. And then for some reason, my mother-in-law decided to only teach my brother-in-law to drive, and then my wife and her sister were not taught. And it's like, you are continuing this regressive policy where you are holding women back, and I'm just trying to get by it. But, you know, because of that, my wife, she's like, well, I don't feel comfortable being on the interstate for this trip to New York. So every single time, even though we're visiting her family, you know, it's on me. And then
you did not marry into the Taliban, correct?
No, weirdly, they are they are from their Syrian descent, which is why it also doesn't make sense because there's no like anti like driving in Syria. I was like, this should be a Saudi problem. Like I'm very confused.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
I would have just been screaming for like freedom, basically. Like I was, I was part of the like, hey, your 16th birthday, like we're out of here. See y'all. Peace.
Yeah.
You want to drive to high school, right? Like
wasn't so much school as much as just like anywhere, basically.
Right. You want to go anywhere, but it's just the cachet of like all your friends are doing it. So the moment you can, like, I had a March birthday, and so all the kids that had like October, November birthdays have been doing it for months. And you're like, okay, I'll just sit over here by myself, like Steven Glansberg, right? And it just like, you want that freedom.
Yeah, and my mother-in-law hates driving, so it's like, why would you not teach them to drive? Then you don't have to.
Get your chauffeurs in.
Yeah. But so I was sitting on the bench at the Maryland Department of Motor Vehicles with two moms who are talking about their daughters. They're like, "Oh, and how old is yours?" 31. What? You don't? And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm 30." And then it's like, it's my wife, and we're expecting in 3 months, and I was like, "You need to learn how to drive." So that was super fun. So Dave, I have to ask you, because I mentioned earlier that Alex and I both dreamed of your job. And Alex actually did a lot of work at the Miami athletic department in sports information and was pursuing that path. I actually spent a year, our sophomore year of college, as the student manager of the women's soccer team at Miami. And then I had a couple internships in the world of like ticket sales and stuff. But when did you transition from fan of your school and your teams to pro? Like, when in your career were you no longer a fan?
Pretty early. I mean, so I had kind of a different experience. So I grew up in Arkansas. So I was like an Arkansas fan when I was a kid. And then so I it figured out embarrassingly late that the NBA was probably not in my future. And then I started writing for my paper when I was in high school. So I was like covering.
Okay.
I was laughing because when I did this, I covered the Big 12 at ESPN for like 3.5 years. And one of my first jobs was not all that similar because the newspaper put me in charge of the junior high section on Thursdays. So I would do like basically 8 team capsules for the 8 junior highs in town. I would do like a feature kind of previewing like the biggest game of the week. And then I would go cover like whatever the biggest game was. I'm like, that's basically what I did at the Big 12 at ESPN. It's college football instead of junior high football, slightly different. So I kind of knew like, I was like, oh, I really like enjoy this. Like I was writing for my student paper, like in high school, obviously, but like kind of doing the city paper stuff and making some money and figuring all that stuff out. And that was kind of my high school job. So when I went to Mizzou, like I kind of knew like, well, I want to do this. So like Mizzou, I went there strictly for the journalism program. I wanted to go somewhere that had like D1 sports. That was kind of important to me because I wanted that experience. I'd obviously grown up going to Arkansas games. I didn't want to go to like, I don't know, Tufts or whatever. So
no, I didn't hear that. Like I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, right? And so I was between UNC and Miami and Boston University, and I eliminated BU because I was like, they don't have like D1 football.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
like,
I want to
be
my college
where the
experience.
action is.
Yeah. And so for me, it was pretty much like Mizzou, Northwestern, or Syracuse, basically. Those were kind of I knew I wanted to do journalism. So it's like, that's where you're going to go. So anyway, so I was in the Missouri's J school. So Missouri is a pretty standard state school. It's like, 90% in-state students, but then you get to the J school and it's like more than half is out-of-state students because it's sort of like, the number one J school. If you want to do journalism, like you go there. So most of my friends were in the journalism program. So none of us came in with like friend groups and, people from high school. Like we had each other basically. And so like, there weren't any like real Mizzou fans like in that group. Like my roommate he was from Kansas City, but like of the, 15 or 20 of us that were like friends, I mean, there was probably like 3 actual Mizzou fans in that group. So we'd like go to games and stuff, but like, like obviously if you have some tie to that school, if you graduated there, but like, I wouldn't describe myself as a Mizzou fan. And then for the Arkansas part of it, like I haven't lived there physically, even though my number is still an Arkansas number. I haven't lived there in 20 years. So like, and when you're covering the Big 12 and doing that every Saturday, like there's like a 5-year block of Arkansas football where I just like didn't watch any of it because I'm doing Big 12 stuff and just busy and all that stuff. Now that you're national, like I try to watch everything. So I try to see everybody. But I don't know that there was necessarily a point. I mean, I think it's like when you leave for college and you kind of know that's what you want to do. Because I knew like I wanted to cover college football. It's always been my favorite sport. And so I don't know that I'd point to a specific time. I don't think it was ever there with Missouri because like I went there for journalism and like I wanted the experience of D1 sports and it was fun. Like, storming the field and rushing the court and all that stuff. But like, I didn't really like. I'm not posting on like Mizzou message boards. Like Quinn Snyder sucks. We gotta get this guy out of here. Like that just was not really like, it's like, oh, the game's tonight. Well, who are we playing? Bemidji State. All right. I'm going to stay home and do homework.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm originally from Los Angeles. I was going to go to Oregon and then got into Miami off the wait list, but still getting the Mario Cristobal experience either way.
Yes.
But when Alex and I were at Miami, it was the Randy Shannon 4 years of football. So we missed the heyday of Miami and we are not there for this hopeful resurgence. But I will say I actually became more of a fan after college because it was just like the one thing that kept me tied to school. And, Alex and I were also in a fraternity. So like we all talk about games and stuff, but also when you suck and you are back in Los Angeles on the West Coast, the games start at 9, Miami home games. So I actually would get to watch Miami for breakfast. And, we'd lose. Yeah, we'd lose with Al Golden too.
I think part of it too is like having like, so my senior year, I covered Mizzou, and when you see how the sausage is made, you're like, some of these people are really annoying to deal with.
Yeah.
And then like you get to know all these programs. Like some people are great to deal with, some people are really annoying to deal with, and you kind of just, the closer you are to all these programs, yes, there are differences. Yes, some coaches are better than others. Generally, all the operations are mostly the same, and so you're like the difference between, whatever, North Carolina football and Syracuse football and Arizona State football is negligible in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's lots of different personalities that are in that, but like they're doing the same stuff. They're trying to recruit kids. They're trying to get kids better. And like, yes, there are sort of differences, but like it's not that different. And you might have a different quality of player and all this different stuff, but like you see the sausage getting made and the factories all look very similar. And so I think I figured that out pretty early in my career. And so it's like, well, I'm just going to chase the story, whatever's interesting, we'll write about. But as far as like the programs themselves, it's hard to be drawn to some. Like there's some people in the business that you just sort of can't help but root for because they're just like good dudes and all that stuff. But it's a lot more of that than it is like the teams or the programs generally. It's like, oh, that guy like treats people right and tries to do right by people, and like it'd be cool if he succeeded, basically.
Yeah. I hear that. As Ethan mentioned, I worked in the sports information department in Miami, and then grad school I was up at St. John's and doing the same thing. And like it took me a good number of years after grad school, after I decided this isn't going to be my career, I'm going to move into something else. It took me a good number of years to like learn how to clap at a game again, learn how to cheer a little bit, right?
Yeah,
like I was very like stoic
bit,
because I remember sophomore year, I'm sitting in the baseball stadium and like my first game, and I like cheered for a home, like I clapped for a home run, and my boss looks at me and goes, "Don't ever do that again." And I was like, "Okay." Conditioned out of me, done. And then
it's just sort of a
like
decorum thing. It is like that carries over. Like I'll go to like my nephew's sports events, and it even feels weird, even though like obviously I'm not doing anything. I'm like, I'm just there as like a family friend or whatever, uncle or whatever. And it's like it is a little bit different. But speaking of, have you guys had to dip your toes in the youth sports world yet?
Little bit.
Yes.
It is wild out there.
I am the proud coach of the 5-year-old Navy Blue Whale Sharks of the Tacoma Soccer League. Sundays at 3. Oh yeah, it's great.
Company car, country club membership.
Orange
exactly.
slices.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a lot of fun. We're at the age where we're not keeping score. When we scrimmage at the end, I tell the kids it's all about fun to fun. Despite having worked for the soccer team, I am not good at soccer. So there was like another dad who, when the kids would have water breaks, he's, doing the thing where he's got the ball and he's kicking it off his knee and his toe and boff it. And I turned to him, I said, "Do you actually play soccer?" And he goes, "I mean, I played D3. It's like,
D3? Oh, God.
Yeah. I was like, and you're just letting me do this? No, you are coaching. So, I have a whistle and I run warm up, and then he does the drills, but I'm the head coach. You know how it is. It's more of a CEO role, So.
It is helpful, I think, like the athletic part of it. I was playing pickup with some guys in Arkansas. I forget. I might have been just out of college, but we had a game going, and this guy who was the 6th man on like an NAIA national champion came one time, just busting people. It was ridiculous. So, like the gap between you and just us who are playing is like wild. And then I also had a game. I was playing in a pickup game in Dallas once, and it was like it was some ugly run, but then like 8 kids who had just won the state title in like 7A came and played with us. That was like not fun. Because they run endlessly. They don't get tired. And they're hitting threes like crazy. And you're like, all right, this sucks now. Because you guys are just taking over the court and no one's going to touch you. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's rough.
But anyway, I feel like it was not the yelling parents thing. That was not happening when I was a kid. I don't know how much you guys played youth sports, but I don't remember that ever. I mean, I played golf, more so basketball, obviously, is kind of more of like the spectator sport. but I don't remember any like embarrassing
So-
instances. And me having only been to like, I don't know, maybe 20 youth basketball games from nephews and nieces, like since we came here, I've probably seen like 6 or 7, like really like embarrassing instances. And I don't know what that is. It was pre-NIL, so I don't know. Like, I don't know where this comes from or what culturally has shifted where people make it acceptable to really like embarrass themselves.
Yeah.
What's weird is that we are seeing that, but we're also in the era of, gentle parenting, which all of us know we're supposed to do, but don't know how to do. Yet I guess that's our avenue in youth sports. We can let out all the rage we're trying to hold in all week.
I don't know. I'm just like, it's like you're getting on these referees that are making $15 a game to referee like a second grade basketball game. I'm just like, it's crazy. Like, what is happening? Like,
it's insane.
I think
like,
it's a lot of people feeling like you see the clip on social media. And I think what you're seeing is most of us going, how could someone act like that? And then there's that small percentage of people going, that's not a bad idea. Like, I think I'm going to take that. I think I'm going to take that,
These are the people in my Twitter mentions, probably, I guess. They must exist. But I mean, listen, there, but for the grace of God go I don't have kids that play sports. Maybe it's different when it's your flesh and blood out there. I get maybe it's a heightened emotion, but like, it's embarrassing for your kids. Like, my parents hated sports. They didn't really care about sports at all. My dad would like bring books for we'd go to a game and my dad would like bring his book. If we weren't playing, I would be like reading a book, but they just kind of sat there like, yeah, go Dave. All right. And then we'd leave and we wouldn't ever like talk about it. Like, my dad was going to be like, what happened in the third quarter? You had that run of like 3 turnovers. Like, that's not going to get you to college. That's just not what we were doing. Like, we just didn't talk about it. Some of it
though could be like the way sort of recruiting cycles work now, where like, especially, I think of like basketball specifically, where it like, when we were coming up, it was like, if you were good on your high school team, you could get recruited. Like, we had a guy from my high school recruited to Virginia Tech, and he played a little like AAU stuff, but now it's just like, if you want to be anybody, you've got to be on the right, like, travel squad at 11 years old, and you got to be picked up and noticed by the right people at the right time. And I feel like parents are delusional about how many D1 athletes their gene pool can produce there, and are maybe pushing their 7-8-year-olds because they're like, hey, if you don't nail it now, you're never going to get, you're never going to get Dan Lanning knocking on your door. Right. Like,
yeah, I think I listen, I'm not a like parenting expert. I'm not a recruiting expert, but just from what I see, the highest percentage of your kid maximizing their ability is if you maintain the love of whatever they're doing. Because if they really love it and really enjoy it, they're going to keep doing it. Like, I love playing basketball. I love playing golf. I'm going to keep doing it. I probably never had a shot to like play in college or whatever, maybe in golf, but not really. And I just was never that good. But like, this idea that like, well, all these private coaches, we're going to pay these private coaches and we're going to get them in all these things. It's like, I really think all that stuff is grossly overrated. If you are good, they will find you. And if you keep doing all this stuff and placing all this pressure, I think your odds of burnout go up, and the odds of your kid hating you go up, in addition to that, which it's both of those situations are things I ideally would like to avoid. So.
I mean,
we'll see. Either my girls might like sports anyway, so we'll see.
I've been teaching my daughter and a little bit my son, taking them out to the driving range, right? With golf. And that is the thing every time. Like, we're lucky enough that like our local Muni course has like a top tracer range, so we can go to that and like they can play like Angry Birds, and their balls turns into the bird kind of thing. And so they love that, but I'm like, let's find ways to like make this fun. You want to sit on the couch, eat your mac and cheese, and come up and hit a shot? Like, let's do this. But like, that's always the question. Are you having fun? What would make this more fun? Like, how do you want to do this? Because I'm like, I'm investing here so that the 12-year-old, the 13-year-old wants to go out and play 18 holes with me. And like, I don't feel like to go out on the course that, I got to say, hey, wifey, is it okay if I, abandon you for 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I think like I really hated to lose when I was a kid. It would like ruin like my whole week if we lost.
Mhm.
But that was always from inside me. My parents truly did not care. They were like, you want to do this, you can do this, hey, good job, good shot, and then go home and what do you want for dinner? I'm not sure I remember ever having a conversation with my dad about like my basketball career, whatever we want to call it. Like we'd play golf. My dad started playing golf whenever I started playing, and we would go out all the time and play, but it was just like to be together. I don't know. I think I don't know what's going on with this. I'm curious if maybe like I don't know, the Gen Z parents that as they get up, if they'll overcorrect or whatever, right? I'm just I feel like this is a newer thing where it's frequent because I just don't remember this when I was a kid, but maybe I just
I don't remember anybody yelling at games. Like I remember people getting, like upset. Like, was it your dad?
No. So my parents were realistic about my abilities. I just wish they had told me I was as bad at baseball as I am, and that I could have pivoted and actually had a decent golf swing now at 36, where I played 9 today and shot a 56 on a par 3-4 course. Very not good, but I was second team all league tight end my senior year of football. No big deal.
There you go.
But I was really good. I had to be.
This
good
is in California, so
technique.
It was like the 11th division.
Ironically, my parents wouldn't let me play football. That was like a huge fight when I was like 7. I probably would have played in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and then probably quit just because I think I would have enjoyed the work. But my parents wouldn't let me play football.
So my parents would not let me play either, and I will say this: in 8th grade, they told me no, and that's because 9th grade is when we started tackle. And I said, you know what? I'm going to join the cheer squad. And I told my parents that I was going to be a male cheerleader. And I brought home the order form for my custom pom-poms. And my dad, great guy, but still, a boomer, was like, no, let him die on the football field. No, that's it. And so my mom was willing to call my bluff. My dad did not, and I got to play. It was fun.
That's
do like a Bobby Boucher here.
That's
right?
impressive.
Like I thought you were just going to tell her that you're studying and going to school, and you're just the water boy.
And I was like, you're going to go to those games. I'm either going to be playing football or cheerleading. So,
I didn't start like basketball was my first love. I didn't really start paying attention to football until like 6th, 7th grade, basically. And then as for journalism's sake, I like it a lot more. Like the culture of college football, is so rich for storytelling. That's naturally where I gravitated to for journalism. But as a game, as a sport, like golf, basketball was my first love. And then golf, like 5th, 6th grade, I started playing a ton and then played through high school. And that's just a time consuming, expensive sport. So as I became an adult, time and money went elsewhere. But as I get a little bit older and the girls get a little bit older, it'd be nice if they played. She does have her little tight set. She does enjoy hitting it and celebrating it, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to carry over into the actual.
So my oldest, she's over. She had her first golf lesson at 3.5 because we were watching it on TV and she tried. So I called the youth instructor.
That's what Rory McIlroy did, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I will say this: she's had about 5 real lessons over the last 2 years, and she and I will go to the driving range. When she remembers to do what her coach said, and I refuse to tell her anything because I want her to be good. She will hit the ball 10 yards straight and in the air. And I'm just playing the math here, Dave. I know that there are more golf scholarships for girls than girls who play golf. So, I don't know with the way athletics departments are changing with the revenue sharing if girls sports will still exist. In 13 years, but playing the odds. So
there you go. The next Lydia Ko, the next Nelly Korda. Get it going.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, Dave. So, I think it's probably
so generous.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. We've really enjoyed the conversation, but we know you're busy as you get summer meetings going, heading into fall camp. anything you want to plug? Obviously, for our listeners out there, if you are not listening to the Bunch Formation podcast, it is top tier college football talk. If you are a gamer, and we didn't get to touch on that tonight, but Ethan and I both play college football 25. Looking forward to the new one. I know you and Chris have been talking a lot about it.
We got a deep dive dropping on Friday.
Okay.
The embargo lifted. So Chris and I both played the beta, and we have a lot of thoughts. So we talked about it.
Love it.
So because I will say before you go, back before the game went away, it got to a point where there wasn't so much better in the next year that you had to buy it. Like you could make it do maybe every 2 or 3 years, but are we at the point where
I was doing it. I was still a midnight at Walmart guy pretty much every year because we didn't have kids back then. I would admit that was true, but I was just never gonna not buy it. So
sure.
Fair enough.
Well, it was always more in like Matt. Yeah.
No, it's they changed a lot for 26.
All right.
Some of the stuff they've added, the playbook stuff, the physics-based tackling. Like they fixed a lot of the pursuit angles, some of the defensive AI, some of the stuff you can do defensively is really cool. We went deep on this, so listen to the pod.
Okay. Yeah, we will. I'm excited. It's big time. Going to be on my run tomorrow. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I listen to you when I work out, Dave. I don't.
That's
listen
good.
To music. I listen to sports pods.
Yeah.
Tell a friend. Just play it over. Play it over. Like bring a Bluetooth speaker and just play it loud, and then see if that counts as subscriptions to the pod. So we'll see.
Okay.
There you go. Viewership numbers are higher. Advertisers.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just dudes being dudes, right?
Exactly. But thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
And
we'll let you go.
Thanks. Appreciate.
All right. See y'all.
See ya. Great to meet you.
All righty. Should we work on the dad bod?
Yeah.
Should we talk about that? That was awesome.
I want to fanboy out for a bit. So I'm really that was great. I mean, for those of you who are watching, you see that I have listed myself as a college football podcast sicko. I listen to them all, and like most of them, honestly, and been a big fan of Dave Ubben for a while. So that was really cool that he agreed to come on. And yeah, it's great. That was cool. Fanboying.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. You know, like Dave is a fantastic, and his co-host Chris Vanini. I didn't say this while Dave was on the air, but also just want to plug, they are also fantastic writers. Get an athletic subscription. They have a deal going right now for a full year, $1 a month, which is, I mean, a heck of a deal for some of the content you can get. Pretty confident it's still ad free, but you can get a lot of great writing and their podcast. I also listen to them. Especially during the season, it's just good commentary from like people being real. You know, it's not like, I think there's some shows out there where it can get very like, how do I say, procedural and, by the numbers and overly analytical in a non-conversational way. But their old show and now their new show, Bunch Formation, fantastic and a lot of fun.
So good. 100%. So yeah, let's work on the dad pod. I'm gonna listen to my dad and keep it nice and tight this time, and just say, despite the fact that last week was Father's Day and there was a lot of food and some expected, some unexpected. Got my shout out to my father-in-law who sent me an edible arrangement that was quite delicious. But last week I was 181.6. This week, I'm 181.4. So despite the overindulgence of calories over Father's Day, still on the right trajectory. And for the season, which, season 3 started on March 13th, I am still down 18.8 pounds this season and 11.4 pounds away from my goal weight. So that's where I'm at.
Nice. Yeah, I think for me, I'm trending to the point where, you're going to catch me. I'm not doing anything heinous. I think last week I was 177.2. This week I'm 177.6. didn't, I have been very much in sort of a maintenance mode, as I mentioned last week. A lot of my focus now has been on like just mobility and like releasing stiffness and being a little bit more intentional and backing off the weightlifting. But I will say, I may have mentioned this on the podcast before, but I was happened to be born with a heart condition. And yesterday I went down for some testing. And one of the tests they have you do is a stress test. And stress test is basically just testing your cardiovascular endurance and how you handle exercise. And the way they do that is not particularly daunting. It is they set the treadmill to 3 speed and have you walk, and then every minute they increase the incline. And doing this test, they stopped the test because I wasn't stopping. And they were like, okay, we've got all the data you need. You tired? I'm like, no, I'm not tired. I can still go for a while. I'm like speaking in full sentences. And they're like, I get off the machine. And they're like, so do you work out like a lot? Are you an athlete? I'm just like, I feel so flattered.
Yeah,
This is worth all the money I had to spend to supplement my insurance on this. Like this is fantastic.
So, full disclosure, folks, I too have a heart condition. It's different than Alex's, but it's not one that they do the annual stress test on. So the stress test is just an increase in the incline and not in speed?
No, not in speed. You can basically you could choose your speed. For most people, they said they did 2.7. You could go 3. Like they don't really care, because what they're trying to get is they're not trying to get you to go for a specific amount of time. They're trying to get your heart rate into the anaerobic zone. Right?
Okay.
A little sausage making there. They're just trying to get your heart rate high enough that they can measure how it responds in certain zones. So it's
Gotcha.
really not like it's not like the presidential fitness test or something like that, where it's like, how fast can you do this? But I did take pride in them, doing the stress test and calling it they're like, just let us know when you get tired. And I'm like, okay, I will. And them going, okay, you could stop now. Like,
Gotcha.
Cool.
Nice.
It was 10 minutes, and I think we got up to like 10 incline. I was like, this isn't
there you go.
hard. And I don't do a lot of I don't focus enough on cardio for what are we doing here? But anyway.
There you go.
Still
there
took
you
pride
go.
in it.
You show that. Yeah, you show that.
Show that treadmill.
But folks, as you know, we've now done back-to-back episodes with guests, our fathers, and now David Ubben. So let us know what you think. We would love to have more guests on, more experts in the field, fellow fathers, even just, maybe we'll bring on some moms. We don't discriminate here. So
no, if you bring value of any sort, but especially in the parenting spectrum, we'd love to have you. You can reach out to us at workingondadpod@gmail.com. That email is also available on our website, workingondadpod.com. I realized in my haste to introduce David, because I'm so excited to get to that conversation.
Sure.
Forgot to say, like and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcast, but especially on YouTube, where we will be, posting this later tonight. If you're hearing this on YouTube when it drops, it's tonight. Yeah. And you can check out all of our social media handles on workingondadpod.com. Easy enough to find.
Yeah. So again, thanks so much to David Ubben, and thanks to all of you for being here as always and working on the Dad Pod with us.
Thanks for working on the Dad Pod with us. Any resources that we mentioned during the show will be in the show notes. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to talk with us, the best place is in the comments on YouTube. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Working on the Dad Pod, and on Twitter at Working on Dad Pod. Following and subscribing is always appreciated. Please rate and review us. That helps get the show to new people. And if you know a dad who would enjoy our show, sharing it with them is a huge help to them and us. Have a great week.